Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to start a new series in which we are going to cover this book, Chess for Dummies by American chess master James Eade. So I personally think that it's a great book. If you are a beginner and you're trying to know the basics of chess, or if you know the basics and you're trying to improve, this is the right book for you. You can also buy the book. I will put the link in the description. It's going to really help you. But even if you don't buy the book, you're still going to learn a lot. So I'll try to explain the key concepts in this book. Before starting, I have to tell you some things about this book. It consists of 5 parts. The first part covers the basics of chess. For example, how do pieces move, what are the basic elements of the game, etc. The second part consists of tactics, like when should you sacrifice, what is a skewer, what is a fork, etc. The third part consists of the 3 main phases of the game: the opening, the middle game, and the end game. In the fourth part, the author tells us that how we can practice the game by playing online, in tournaments, or what is the etiquettes of playing an over-the-board game. And in the final part, the author tells us about 10 famous chess games and 10 best players of all time. So without wasting time, let's start our first lesson. Today we are going to start the part 1 of the book. Today's lesson will be on the chessboard, the chess pieces, how they move, and how to position the chess pieces when you're starting the game. So let's begin. What is chess? Chess is a board game that is played between 2 players in which there is alternation of turns between the 2 players. Now let's talk about the chessboard. The chessboard constitutes of 64 squares of light and dark colors. The first thing that you have to remember while setting a chessboard is that in the bottom right corner, there should always be a white square like this one. So when you're playing online or in the computer, this doesn't matter because the board is already set in the correct orientation. But when you're playing an over-the-board game, you should remember that in the bottom right corner, there should be the white square like this one. Okay? If there isn't, if there's a dark square on the bottom right corner, then this color scheme will not be arranged, and color scheme matters a lot in chess. So the horizontal rows on the chessboard are called ranks. For example, this one and this one. So they are numbered from 1 to 8 from bottom to the top. From bottom, I mean where the white pieces go. So the white pieces go here. So this is the bottom of the board. So this is the first rank. We start from here. This is the second rank. This is the third rank, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, and finally the 8th rank. I hope you get the idea. Now the vertical columns on the chessboard are called files. They are represented by small letters and they start from left to right. For example, this is the A file, this is the B file, the C file, the D, E, F, G, and H file. Okay, so every square on the chessboard is given a unique name. For example, this square is present on the 5th rank and on the D file. So this is called the D5 square. This method of naming the squares is called file first method because the file name comes first, D5. Similarly, this square is on the 6th rank and on the F file, so it is called F6. Now there are also a bunch of diagonals on the chessboard. For example, this diagonal, this diagonal, this diagonal. So diagonals are given names by their starting and end squares. For example, this diagonal is called H1A8 diagonal because its first square is H1 and its last square is called A8. Okay, usually the first square is taken from the lower rank. The lower rank in this case is this rank, so the first square is H1 and the last square is A8. Similarly, in this diagonal is called A3 F8 diagonal. A3 F8 diagonal. So these were the basic things about the chessboard. Now let's talk about the chess pieces. So there are 6 types of chess pieces. We're going to cover them one by one. First of all, there is the rook. The rook looks like a tower. It moves in straight lines, in files and ranks, like this. It can go to all of these squares I am highlighting. all of these squares. Okay. Now, if a piece comes in the rook's way, it cannot jump over the piece. Okay. It cannot go to these two squares because this piece over here is blocking its way. So how does the rook capture? So the rook captures by just landing on top of the piece which comes in its way. So this piece is coming in its way. It's a different colored piece, that is the opponent's piece. So it can just capture it by landing on it. So the rook moves in straight lines. It cannot jump over pieces, and it can capture pieces by landing on them. So the way the rook captures, every other piece on the chessboard captures the same way by just landing on the piece. Number 2, we have the bishop. The bishop moves in diagonals like this. Okay? It can go to all of these squares. All of these squares. Same thing about the bishop is that when someone is blocking its way, it cannot jump over it. For example, this bishop cannot go to these squares. And it captures the same way as the rook. If this bishop is in its way, it can capture it by landing on top of it. Now, there's an interesting thing about the bishop, which is that bishops are color specific because this bishop cannot move to the light squares, that is to these squares, because it remains on the diagonal. It can go to all these squares but never come on the white square for the entire game. So bishops are very color specific. That is why in the starting of a game, you get two bishops. One is on the light squares and one is on the dark squares, so you can cover all the board. This is a white bishop and this is a black bishop. They are opponents, but they can never capture each other because they are on the opposite colors. They can never capture each other no matter where they go. So the bishop evolved from the elephant. In the early days, the elephant was a piece, and now we know it as the bishop. So elephant cannot make long jumps, but the soldier present on the elephant used to have a spear in his hand, and he could throw that spear to long distances. So that is why the bishop can travel long distances across the board in diagonals. Number 3 comes the queen. Queen is the most powerful piece on the chessboard. It moves in straight lines just like the rook, and also in diagonals like the bishop. So the queen is actually a combination of bishop and rook. It can cover all these squares. That is why it's so powerful. Same thing about the queen is that if a piece is blocking its way, so this queen cannot move to this square, that is, it cannot jump over pieces. Now the queen captures the same way as the other pieces. They can just land on a piece that comes in its way, like that. So the queen was initially the vizier. Vizier is the second hand of the king. Initially it was the vizier. It wasn't so powerful, but in the 15th century it was upgraded to the queen and it became more powerful. So these are some interesting things about the pieces that I'm telling you along with their basic things. Next comes the king. The king is the most important piece of the game. If your king is trapped and cannot escape, then you've lost the game. That is called a checkmate. We're going to discuss all about that in the rest of the series. The king follows the queen. It can move in straight lines and in diagonals, but one square at a time. Okay? It can move in diagonals and in straight lines, that is over files and ranks, but one square at a time. So to simplify it, it can only move to these 8 squares that surround the king. Okay? It can move here. It can move here. But it cannot move like 2 squares at once. It cannot jump, obviously, because it moves just one square, and it captures the same way as other pieces. It can just capture it by landing on a piece. Next comes the knight. So the knight's movements are a bit tricky to learn, but if you practice, you can learn them, and you will notice that knight is a very interesting piece, okay? So the best way to explain the movement of knight is that it moves in L shapes, like this. Or like this, okay? So it moves 2 squares up and then 1 on the right or either on the left. To simplify it, this knight can move to these 2 squares. Hit 2 squares up, then 1 on the right, then 1 on the left, okay? These 2 squares. Similarly, 2 squares up, 1 on the right, 1 on the left. So it can move to these 2 squares as well. 2 squares up, 1 on the right, 1 on the left. It can also move to these 2 squares. 2 squares here, 1 on the right, 1 on the left. It can move to these 2 squares as well. So in total, it can move 8 squares when it's on the center of the board. Okay? 2 squares up, 1 right, left, then 2 up, right, left, like this. 2 up, 1 right, left, 2 up, 1 right, left. Okay? When it's on the edge of the board, it can only cover 4 squares. And when it's on the corner, it can cover just 2 squares. The interesting thing about knight is that it can jump over pieces. Okay? Even if the knight is surrounded by all these pawns, for example, it can still go to these squares by jumping to any of these squares. So the knight can jump over pieces, and it's the only piece on the chessboard that can do this jumping. Okay, the knight captures the same way as all the other pieces. It can just capture it by landing on the piece. And finally, we have the pawn. So the pawn can only move 1 square at a time up, and it can only move forward. It cannot go backward. Okay, it cannot go backward. But the interesting thing about the pawn is that when it's on its starting square, it's this square, the pawn start from these squares. We're going to discuss that also later on in the video. It can move 2 squares or 1 square. It can move either to this square or this square, but only for one move it has this choice of going 1 square or 2 square. It can go here, but then after that, it can go 1 square at a time only. The different thing about the pawn is that it does not capture the way it moves. It captures diagonally, either right or left. Okay? It can capture a piece that is present on either these 2 squares. For example, if there's, a knight present on this square, it can just capture it like this. Now, if there is no piece present on either these 2 squares, it cannot capture, and it only has a choice to go up. Okay? Now, if a piece is present ahead of it, it cannot move. So this is called a locked pawn. It cannot move. So for example, if this pawn is present here, it's locked. Both of these pawns cannot move. Now to unlock the pawn, there is a technique. This technique involves another pawn, okay? For example, if white has 2 pawns here, white can push this pawn up, and now this pawn has to take it. If he don't, white will take him, okay? So black has to take this pawn. When he takes it, this pawn is free to go. It can go ahead. Okay, this technique is called the lever. And you should remember one thing, that 2 pawns defend each other and are very powerful when they are together. They're not so powerful. Pawns are not so powerful when they are alone, but they're very powerful when they are together. We're going to learn about the pawns later on in the next chapters of the book. There's a complete chapter on the pawns as well. So congratulations, you learned all about the chess pieces, how they move, how they capture. Now, let's set up the chessboard. Okay. So each player gets 2 rooks. White has 2 rooks and black has 2 rooks, and rooks go in the corners of the board. Okay. Like this. 2 rooks for white, 2 rooks for black, and they go on the corner of the board. Alright. Next come the knights. Each player has 2 knights as well. They come beside the rooks, like this. 2 for white, 2 for black, they come beside the rook. Next is the bishop. Each player also has 2 bishops that come beside the knights, like this. Okay? So these 2 are white's bishops, these 2 are black's bishops. They come beside the knights, like this and this. Next come the queens. The queens come beside the bishops over here to these 2 squares. Each player gets 1 queen, okay? So white queen will go here and black queen will go here. So you can remember that the queens go on the D file and on the D1 and D8 squares. And finally, there's just room for one more piece, and that is the king. The king goes here, and the king, black king goes here. So these are all the pieces. Now come the pawns. Every player has 8 pawns, 8 for white, and they come on the second rank. They come on the second rank like this. And black also has 8 pawns and they come on the 7th rank like this. Like this. Okay, so this is the chessboard. One last thing for you, that if you lose a knight, for example, you lose a knight, you can say that I lost a knight, or you can say that I lost a piece. But if you lost a pawn, you cannot say that you lost a piece. You just lost a pawn. So it's just chess language. So this was today's lesson. I hope we all learned something. This was the basics. As we go on in the series, we will discuss advanced concepts as well. The next video will be uploaded in a few days, inshallah. That's it for today.